Hello there. Today we're going to talk about tense, meaning should you write in the present tense or the past tense? And let's go ahead and clear up one thing here. Typically, a memoir is going to be written in first person, meaning you are writing about your life. So you're describing me, I, my, from that perspective. You're the narrator. You're the protagonist. You're the main character of your story. I would assume there's going to be possibly a few small reasons why you would use a different perspective, a different point of view to write from. But for our purposes, I'm going to generally assume that you're writing from the first person. And so then you're left with the decision whether to write in present tense or past tense. And so this sounds like I am doing, I do this, I see this, he is this, whatever, right? Present tense. And then the past tense, I did this, I had this, I went there, I lived there. So the difference, okay? So let's talk about this. The majority of memoirs, of course, you're writing about something that happened in the past, right? So it makes sense for you to want to jump in and write it from the past. When I lived on this street, this happened, I had a dog and, etc., right? You're just going to start describing what happened at that time, where you were, what happened in those moments, what happened in your memories, and possibly adding some reflections about what how you look upon that memory in the past today in your present moment. So you may have some of those reflections woven in there. So it's easy to assume that the past tense is going to be pretty comfortable for people to write in. But here's the difference. When you write in past tense, it ends up sounding very I kind of think of it like journalistic, a little bit just you're reporting the news, you're kind of reporting what happened. You may have heard this phrase, show, don't tell. You're kind of just telling us what happened. I lived here, I went there, I did this, I did that. Instead of putting us in that scene. And instead of us being there with you in that moment, we're just sort of being told about it or watching this thing, kind of unfold instead of like being a part of it. It's kind of just this step back. So the past tense is something that it's a tool you can use in certain circumstances that helps make the writing a little bit more comfortable. For example, in the book Lucky by Alice Sebold, she describes this horribly violent rape, and it's very journalistic, short, to the point. She's reporting facts, she's not diving in something like that. You may, very traumatic, very explosive, violent scene, something like that, that's going to be very hard for your readers to digest. There may be a reason why you need to write it in past tense to kind of keep that emotional space a little bit. So they're not in it with you, they're back here a little bit, hearing about it, as it happened years ago, whenever. That may be something you consider for your readers, but I do want to urge you to, think about what effect that has on the engagement of, the connection, the excitement of your book, our meaning the readers, our interest in being there with you instead of just kind of being talked at. So think about that. Think about whether it hurts that kind of action and that connection on your readers and them feeling like they're literally there in that scene with you. So the past tense has its uses. And here's another point I want to bring up on this. If you are struggling to write a very emotional scene for you and you've attempted to write it in present tense, if you shift to writing it in past tense, it may be easier for you to write. So you may start out in your first draft with past tense, or maybe just a few scenes. in past tense, and then shift them to present tense later after, you revisit them and maybe feel more comfortable doing that. But with tense, you want to make sure it's consistent throughout the book. If you are writing in present tense and you're concerned that these scenes that happened so long ago are not flowing well together, or it's confusing, like if you're kind of doing a flashback and then you're going back to present day and you're doing these back and forth scenes, you can always use a little tool like scene break. Obviously, there's transitional words you can use, like 20 years later, here I am, that type of thing, to give the readers that indication of where you went, where you were, where you went in your story, from scene to scene or chapter to chapter. So just think about that as well. We want to make sure the book is something that the readers can navigate through without feeling any confusion at all. That confusion slows down the narrative drive and slows down their ability to just kind of stay interested and engaging and wanting to flip those pages. So any confusion, like, oh, where is she right now? What just happened? I thought so and so was already dead, or that type of thing will just confuse them, and it'll just end up feeling very like I missed something. I'm not as engaged. I'm feeling away from, step out of this scene, like I just got kicked out somehow. So let's move on. I want to talk about present tense. There really is no better way to write a memoir than present tense if you really want them to feel in this thing, like they're looking through your eyes at the event, they're feeling what you felt, they're like in your skin. This is an amazing experience for your readers because they are reading your book to feel something. They're reading your book to take away something and to internalize something. They aren't just reading it to be told about what happened. They're reading it to feel what happened. So present tense is an extremely effective method to deliver this. And I know a few people in our group, a few women have posted some writing that was done in present tense, and it was engaging, emotionally raw and tangible. It's like you can feel it, you can grab it and touch it. So that is what you want in your book. These are the books that really stick with a reader. These are the books that impact the reader's ability to feel these things and maybe heal and move on and continue on this journey with you. If you're coming from a place of darkness and you're leading them to the light, to the light at the end of the tunnel, having that connection point in those dark moments lets them know, like, hey, I've been there too. I felt these things, and they will resonate with that, and they will be more along for the ride with you. They will be there every step of the way because you're allowing them to see these things through your eyes. That's extremely powerful. So present tense is what I love to read present tense as a reader. It's way more engaging. It can be difficult to write because you are thinking back. You do have to put yourself in this headspace of like being there. So this might take a little kind of mindset prep before you start writing a present tense scene. You may have to like somehow get yourself in the mood, in the space, back in that situation. Like, for example, if there was a scene that took place in a car, you may go sit in your car and kind of think through these things, think through what happened, start gathering little tidbits. What was on the radio? What color was the interior? How did it feel sticking to your legs? That type of thing. Try to take some tangible, very tangible moments, characteristics, aspects, things. Make this a vivid, alive scene. The more alive you can make it, the more your readers are going to be transported into that back seat of the car with you, looking through your eyes, going, oh my gosh, I can't believe this thing even happened. So the more richness you can add to your story, the better. And present tense really helps with this. One last note, and I'm going to do a separate video lesson on this because I think it's really interesting. It's one of my, it's just a really fun topic to talk about. when you describe these scenes and you're putting us in it in the present moment, that doesn't mean you need to like add all of these fluffy words and just like dig through the thesaurus for hours to sound descriptive, like the flowing blue river, that type of thing isn't necessary. It's about putting us in that moment in a very human way. What would we have felt? Like I said, maybe you're sitting on this vinyl car seat and it's hot, it's summer, and your legs are sticking to it. Those of us who have had that happen know what that feels like, and it's maybe an uncomfortable feeling, and sometimes it even hurts. So it could just be that moment, that connection point that brings us into the moment, and it's relevant somehow. It's not just a random detail that just makes its way in. So we're going to continue this discussion about description, especially in the context of show don't tell, because at the end of the day, that doesn't mean literally tell us everything that you see or everything around you, right? We don't need all of that. We need only the relevant facts, only the facts that bring that richness and add that depth to your scene. So let's sum up. Present tense is what I would love to see if you're going for more of an active, engaging voice and experience for your readers. I think it's typically the more enjoyable tense to read as a reader, and it can be very raw and real and actually very difficult in those hard scenes. And that brings me to past tense. And if you need to use past tense as a tool to write those scenes, feel free to do that. Get those down on paper in past tense and go back and revise. So let me hear your thoughts on this. Is it easier? Do you feel like your memoir flows better in past tense because you're writing about things that happened years ago? Or are you able to write in present tense, even as a small child, putting us in the shoes of that 4-year-old girl, doing the thing, right? Playing with the toy, chasing the dog, whatever it is. How does that feel for you? And what are your thoughts on which tense works best for you personally or for your story? I'd love to hear it. Let me hear some comments about this, and we'll continue our discussion. I'll see you soon.